That just never ever gets old. I hope you all enjoyed that song just there. I was just dancing away in the background and nobody could see me or hear me, hopefully. But yeah, that's an absolute fave. If you've not seen the film, then you've got no idea what that was all about. So I've been pushed upstairs. The kids are downstairs doing their homeschooling. Husband's moaning because it's raining outside, so I'm upstairs today, so hopefully you can see me a little bit better because we've not got the light behind me as well, so ultimately that's a good thing too. So firstly, again, thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I obviously want to make this quite interactive, so if you can use the chat as and when you can, or raise your hands if you feel like you want to say anything. I was watching a webinar just the other day, and they allowed people, what do I say allowed, but they open microphones up. So that's something I'm maybe looking at doing in the future to make it more of a conversational webinar, because I'm getting sick of the sound of my own voice. I don't know if you guys are getting sick of seeing me every Monday. You keep coming back for more, so that's a good sign. But ultimately today we're going to be looking at skin fitness. I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone with this one. We are going to be talking about alternative medicine, about traditional Chinese medicine, about a little bit around reflexology. I do know enough to get by. I've learned a lot from doing this webinar, so I want to share that with you guys today. So again, I'm not here because I profess to know everything about everything. This is the link that I've put together, and something I have a lot of my clients come and ask me about, actually, and I feel better now I know that a little bit more. In addition to that, in my clinic, I actually have a reflexologist who I quite often call in a nice way, a witch, a white witch, because ultimately what she does is incredible. And now I know a little bit more about it, I have a little bit more respect for that. So hopefully, if anything, you're going to get that from here as well too. So let's have a little look on the chat who we've got here and where everybody's from. So if you can start to comment where you're from, that would be really good. Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Jo. You'll never get sick of my voice, she says. So tell me where you're from and what you've got to drink this morning for your breakfast. That'll be really good. Just a bit of an icebreaker. Anybody in the chat there? So Northampton, that's lovely. Welcome, Gemma. Morning to Lisa. Blackpool, we've got some in Blackpool, some from Wigan drinking coffee. Ali and Derby, welcome everybody. We've got somebody from Essex with a cup of tea. Fabulous, excellent. So lots and lots of different people from different places, which is fabulous. Norwich, North Wales, Cornwall, that's great, amazing. So literally all over, just from the comfort of our own home. Absolutely, that's amazing. Okay, perfect. So hi, yeah, hello everyone. Sorry if I don't say your names. Hi Rachel, Tracy, Alicia. Fabulous. Okay, so whilst I'm talking away, the other thing I would like you to do in the chat is just put what it is that you do as your main role. So what is your job? Just because I'm curious as to where this is going now. So I started out these webinars hoping to do it for peers and colleagues in dentistry, hygiene and therapy, and dentists, dental nurses, ultimately to link skin to smiles. That is the name of my company, Skin Smile Success. But I've slowly started to notice lots and lots of individuals coming in, and I'm really excited about that for two reasons. Reason number one is the fact that it means that there's new diverse people coming in to listen to myself, which is going to help grow, in my eyes, the role of a therapist, a dental therapist, so people are going to understand what we do more, which is even more exciting. And in addition to that, it just opens a whole window of opportunity. And I know I talk about this all the time, but you imagine if all of us are working in coalition and we all understand what each of the job roles is, life is going to be an awful lot easier. I know it's quite tough at the minute, but you imagine when we go back to work, if we recognize more so the skills of an individual and how we can integrate that into what we're doing, then that's all the better. So I'm actually really excited with how these webinars are going, and that so many of you can actually resonate with them as well. So that's good. So hopefully I'm doing something right. But as I say, any topics that you want covering, please drop them in a message. I've got one coming up. Someone asked for hair removal and more information around hair. So obviously I'm looking to do that for you guys in the near future too. But anything that you want, just let me know. If I can't talk about it, I'll try my best to, but alternatively we can get guest people in as well. So that's even more exciting. So mix it up and a little bit of a break from the norm there. Okay. So one thing I've been reading this week, I've got 2 books. I've left the other one downstairs because I was that busy reading it this morning. But this is a really good one, actually. This is called The Little Black Book. Now, I'm sorry if there's any guys on here as well. I am researching one for gents, but this has been right nice little tool while I've been in the back garden. It's a little black book. I think it's about £4 off Amazon or something similar. And it's just a toolkit. It's a bit cheesy. When I saw it, I was like, a toolkit for working women. I was like, geez. But I've actually really got into it. There's little snippets in there. A little bit of it's a bit, but there's certain parts in here. If you are self-employed, if you work for somebody, if you've got your own clinic or salon, or you're a self-employed therapist of sorts, there's snippets in here that you can take out. So I'd definitely be recommending that, and that's available off Amazon. I don't get any commission for this, guys. This is just something that I've been reading, so I would highly recommend it. So The Little Black Book. I'm not going to try and pronounce the author's surname, but you can see it on there. Hopefully I can put a link up if you guys want to at the end. But ultimately, that's what I've been up to this week, alongside writing this webinar, which has gave me a little bit of anxiety, I'm not going to lie, because again, I'm out of my comfort zone, but that's a good place to be. So you guys are obviously tuning into this because, again, it's something different. We're going to be looking at skin fitness, and ultimately, hopefully taking something out of this as well. I'll stop waffling on. So if you guys haven't been, anybody new to my webinars, there is a purpose, believe it or not, as much as I'm waffling on, there is a purpose, and that is to do some form of SWOT analysis while we've got everything going on. So mine's called Project Corona, and it sits in this journal here, which sounds really, really sad, but that no one will ever see this. This will be buried with me. But ultimately, in here, I have lots and lots of projects and ideas. Some are stupid, some are far-fetched, some are like, Annette, what are you talking about? But ultimately, I've set what's going on as a giant project for me, my business, me professionally, me personally as well. Now, try not to take on too much at once. That's my advice. So that's why we need to break it down. So if we think about strengths, we think about weaknesses, we think about opportunities, and we think about threats. That's what we do with the SWOT analysis. So you break everything down and you try and analyze what you're going to do with how you're going to do it. So ultimately, I'm giving you some information today. So what you can do is create a SWOT analysis around that. So how are you going to use this? What strength is this going to add to what I'm doing? What weaknesses is it going to add? Do I not know enough? Annette didn't cover enough of X, Y, and Z, so I need to go off and do this. The opportunity that you have from learning what I'm showing you today, what is that going to bring? And the threat. So what does what you're learning today, how is that a threat? And so ultimately, yes, we can't go out and use it practically because of everything that's going on, but what other strengths can we bring back because of that threat? So you can see where I'm going with this. Now, when these used to be brought up in when I was at college, before I went to university, a SWOT analysis, I used to roll my eyes, and I know some of you are probably sat doing that right now, and putting my pen at you, but ultimately, just try it, because again, my book is full of them and I hate doing them, but it has ultimately helped me do what I need to do. So if I have a big project on, which I've got a few at the moment, I break them down and it does help. So my teachers would be so proud of me, because I used to really moan about doing these, and ultimately they do help now. It's much like a SMART target, so that's another thing that you can use as well, but we're going off into a whole different ball game with that one there. Another thing that I like to use is word art. So spend this week to create some word art. I like this because it's visual. So you guys that have been with me from the start, I think we're on number 4 or 5 now. I don't know if you've been doing this or not, but I still do one once a week just to see how things change. Now this week, mine, I've not got it on here because I only did it yesterday and I forgot to upload it. So, yesterday I had a down day. I just lay on the sofa and did next to nothing, because that's what I needed to do. And ultimately, that's not very often that happens, but that's what I did. And this week's mine focuses around fitness. So I'm starting a bit of a health kick, and I'm going to try and get my ass into gear and do a little bit more exercise as well. I know I've been doing the running side of things, but I want to do some other stuff. So that's what my focus is around today. So you'll see how it changes as things go on. And that's always a good thing, because you don't feel like you're stuck in this rut. 4 weeks ago, when all this kicked off, I was the one crying in my cornflakes, and these are the sort of things that have helped pull me out to the side. So if you are feeling a little bit like that, and I do see some negative posts on social media, then just try as best you can. Hopefully what I've given you will give you some nuggets to maybe pull yourself out of it. But I'm always here if you just need a chat or a moan or a rant, whatever, anyway, for anybody. And I mean that. You've got my email. There it is. Okay. So we're going to move on to what your face is telling you, okay? Now, again, completely out of my comfort zone. However, I found snippets that link in to what I know, and what I think I know, and what I think I should know. So hopefully that'll come out as we're going along as well. Previous webinars, we've looked at, and this is where you'll start to see it linking in, we've looked at skin and stress, we've looked at skin and superfoods, and we've looked at skin and inflammation. But now we're going to take a look at what exactly your face is telling you. Now, this is not set in stone. And again, if you look at what we looked at in the last 3 webinars, ultimately, then you'll think, well, we've covered all of that. But have we? Because we will always have a certain group of patients or group of individuals, ultimately, or obviously, I know some of my clients are tuned into this as well. You guys that come and see us, you have a different way of thinking. Now, where my clinic is, it's based in quite a, I don't know how to say this word, but like a fluffy, arty-farty kind of place, if that makes sense. So not everybody is about skin science, ultimately. So I have to adapt what I'm doing because of that. And it's much the same, whatever industry you're in. So everyone has their own little beliefs and paths, their own little SWOT analysis of where they want to go with anything, ultimately. So having an understanding of other things like this, I think, certainly helps. Again, I'm all about evidence, so that's what I searched for at the end of this, and I did find some. So that's why I thought, you know, hey, I can do a webinar around this, because I'm out of my comfort zone, but there is still some evidence. So here we are. So what your face is telling you. So I'll start with how the skin works. So I know you guys have maybe tuned into this before, but I think it's really, really important to recognize that there's more to the surface than skin. Hopefully some of you that are tuning in will already know the majority of this, but just a refresher. So the skin is there to protect. Obviously there's a layer on top, and that's ultimately for protection. On top of our top layer, that stratum, forgot my words, epidermis, then we have the layer of oil on top as well, which is there for protection too. It's there for sensation, so it contains nerve endings, which send stimuli to the rest of the body as well. It helps with heat regulation. When we talk about control of evaporation, we can think about water loss. So if you see in the dermis here, I keep pointing like you can see, but you can't. So you've got the dermis at the bottom. Ultimately, we have moisture in that area to maintain the metabolism of the skin. If that very top layer is breached somehow, then that is going to affect the dermis ultimately. So we start to get evaporation, and that's called transepidermal water loss. So it's where water is lost from the inside of the skin. You know, controlling evaporation may also be classed as excretion. So obviously when we're sweating out the toxins as well. Ultimately, the majority of that happens at night time, as we've learned over the last webinar. So sleep is really, really important to getting rid of those toxins over time as well. So do remember that. Hopefully you're seeing how all these are linking in, because I'm loving the fact that I'm more fluent with this because I've done this for you guys as well. Or I think I'm more fluent, ultimately. We still have our moments though, don't we, all of us? So storage and synthesis, so it's there to maintain nutrients. It's there for excretion as well, so it's going to take away any toxins via the lymph ultimately, and again by sweat and excretion. We're going to absorb products in, we're going to absorb pollution in, we're going to absorb the UVA and the UVB rays in as well. So again, skin is going to act as some form of sponge, but there is that protective layer at the top. I'm sorry if you can hear the dogs. They're going a bit berserk. I think Amazon may be here with my next book. We also have water resistance, obviously, from that oily layer on top of the skin and that top layer of the epidermis. This is one that I like. It's there for aesthetics and communication. So when I do a webinar, I put a bit of makeup on, more on my eyelashes at the minute because I am missing my eyelashes. But ultimately, you know, it makes us feel good. It makes us think that other people think that we look good too, ultimately. So it helped with communication. Now, if you saw me 2 hours ago when I'm sat with yesterday's a bit of mascara down my eyes from obviously, you know, it'd been hot upstairs in bed last night, then again, I wouldn't be confident talking to you guys like that as well. So that's important to remember. And that in effect connects it to our emotions. So that will link in all the other webinars that we've done as well. And it makes sense why. So when we say connected to our emotions, what else is it connected to? it's important to understand the functions and relate to these conditions as we're going along as well. And it's important to understand how, and it's important to understand why. So again, you know, it's thinking outside the box with things and resonating with different individuals. So you guys who are setting up businesses ultimately, and you found that the sciencey side of it isn't quite working, let's try this approach. There's one lady in particular that's popping into my head, and I know she's listening, and I hope you know that I'm talking about you, because I did see that you were obviously feeling a little bit down about your business not lifting off, and then all of a sudden, obviously Corona's happened. So hopefully these sort of snippets are going to help you integrate into a different type of patient database as well, and you can talk about things and hopefully attract them to other stuff as well. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So again, I'll start to maybe change these up because you might be getting a little bit bored, but maybe if you have them quite often enough, then you'll remember one or two of them, because obviously I know that if saying it once, you're not going to remember all of them. But just a few facts about skin. The skin makes up approximately 12 to 15% of our body weight. The average person has 20,000 square centimeters of skin and 300 million skin cells. We shed around 700 grams of skin a year, so it makes you want to wash your bedding quite often, hopefully, and hoover up, and approximately 60,000 particles in 1 hour. So you imagine, while we're on lockdown, we're all locked in the house. That's why I've got to keep hoovering 15 times a day. Never mind the animals as well. So ultimately, that's a lot of waste, excess skin cells that we are losing as well. By age 70, we have lost almost 48 kilograms of skin. So you can see why it's so important what we're putting on and what we're putting in our bodies to help maintain that skin's metabolism ultimately. Each 3 centimeters square has approximately 10 hairs, 15 sebaceous glands, 100 sweat glands, and 100 centimeters of tiny blood vessels. The average skin cycle is 28 days, but as we get older, we know, like most things, that is going to slow down as well. So that is just a guide. So again, I always like to start my webinars just with that little bit more thought to what the skin is ultimately. So we're looking at the stratum corneum, different layers of the skin, the lucidum, the granulosum, and the spinosum. Basal layer, melanocyte. So you guys that are obviously doing the skin cancer awareness courses with me as well, and the MassGet accreditation, you start to think outside the box and understand how and why these things work, because it's repetition and you are consistently seeing it, hopefully. A rarer type of cancer is the Merkel cell cancer. So we've got a multitude, various skin cells where things can go wrong ultimately. And right as well. Beauty is so much more than skin deep. Our skin reflects our inner health and happiness as well. So I have this slide on every time, but I think the last bit, inner health and happiness, is more linking to this Meridian traditional Chinese medicine kind of thing. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. So skin fitness. So I'm looking at, when I go back to my clinic, I'm looking at having a little bit of a face gym. So this was brought to my attention by, it was a rep actually for a company that I work closely with. And, you know, ultimately we can give our faces a workout when we know what we know with products, when we know what we know with massage, with pressure, with acupressure, with these meridians that I'm going to talk to you about today. We can create a fitness regime for the skin. And ultimately, that's something that I'm looking at doing when I return to clinic. Have a little look on YouTube. There is a face gym down in London, of course it is. I think it's in Selfridges or something similar. It looks incredible. So you can see the sort of thing that I'm thinking about there. And that's something that I'm looking into, but it looks really, really good. Our faces reveal so many emotions. You can look at someone and immediately see whether they are sad, stressed, angry, or happy. So obviously, how can we help with that? So my colleague, who I'm going to keep talking about, and I think she's logged on, is, you know, she's really good at picking that up. So if I like to think that I don't have much of a telltale face. So if I'm, you know, I've got a good poker face, some would say. But Ali, who I work with, ultimately she sees through that every single time. And I think that becomes because of the link that she's got with the job that she does, and she focuses around, you know, this different side of medicine that I'm not too familiar with. Maybe that gives her that hidden advantage almost. But we know when our patients that come in are sad or happy. And again, we can sometimes see that from their skin and the condition of their skin as well. But then we've got that whole vicious circle, because obviously they're sad about the skin and they get stressed about it. And we've talked about stress and anger and how that has an effect on the skin. And then we're stuck in that vicious circle ultimately as well. Okay. I dare say that we can do the same analysis with a smile as well. So obviously those of you guys who don't know, maybe I should introduce myself, but I am a dental therapist and a dental hygienist. I used to be a dental nurse, and prior to that I was a beauty therapist with my own salon, and then I went on to uni, and then now I've got my own clinic again, and I try and integrate everything all together. Albeit dentistry I have to do in a dental setting for now until my clinic is developed fully. But when we're thinking about smiles as well, we could talk about diets, lifestyle, we talk about mental well-being. All this can be picked up on how that person looks, both with their skin and their smile. So if someone is quite down about themselves, then they may eat more sugar, more sugary products, and then that's going to have an effect on the teeth and have an effect on the skin. Do you see where I'm going with this? So it is all linked together. And it's down to us. You could put an image up there of somebody at the gym, and if they're in the corner with the headphones on, not wanting to communicate with anybody, there's a reason for that. Ultimately, that's probably me, because I go to the gym when I was allowed to. Remember what gyms are? When we went to gyms, and I like to get in a zone, but not everybody does. So it's whatever profession that we're in, it's thinking outside the box of that window of opportunity, that patient that we've got in the chair or in the room with us ultimately. Again, I'm relating this to dentistry. So what you see in here is a picture of some decay. Well, there's more going on than that. Ultimately, you guys are probably shouting at the screen. But this in clinic for me on a normal day, like not so much now because obviously I'm out of work, but when I am in a clinical setting, this will tell me what I need to do. And when we start to think about skin and mental health and well-being and stress-induced issues and everything else to include traditional Chinese medicine and skin mapping and face mapping, where do we start? Okay, so this tells us what to do. And that is ultimately, I know what you guys who train with me have been looking for, because you're thinking, well, where do I start? And I'm used to seeing a prescription almost of what I need to do. And that's hopefully maybe where this face mapping will take you ultimately. It is a little bit harder with the skin to decipher an issue than what's going on. But that's where, if you start to think outside the box with things, it will start to get that little bit easier. So you're all taking a picture of this right now, aren't you? Because you really like it. Well, I did too when I came across it. So I was like, what is this about? I am, how on earth is the face in any way connected to the stomach, the kidneys, the heart, the bladder, the small intestine, the lungs, pelvic organs? Really? But then I started to think, well, hang on a minute. When I am menstrual and when I'm due on, ultimately, where do I get most of my breakouts? I resonate with that. In relation to gallbladder, if I'm having any stomach issues, where do I get my breakouts? I'm with that one as well. If I have had a heavy weekend, I end up getting a corking great big zit right in the middle of my eyes here as well. So I can resonate with that. If you guys can't, then maybe just keep tuned in and just hear me out, because there is some evidence behind it too. But ultimately, this has been a big eye-opener for me, and I really, really like this image. It was purchased from some image website, so it's not just got the eye stock image all across it, because I liked it that much. I paid for this image, and I really, really like it, and I will be using it with my clients when I go back as well. Now I know more. But for years, these images have been around, but in light of what you've learned over the last few weeks, hopefully this is ringing all too true with relation to any skin issues that you may have, like I've just discussed. Face mapping is one of them. It stems from an ancient Chinese belief that a person's skin is a reflection of their inner health. In the recent years, new face mapping techniques have been introduced, and these tend to rely on dermatology. So there is more that's kind of entwining the two together. So it's not just, here's their idea of medicine and here's ours. They're starting to ring some truth between the two, rather than traditional wisdom. And they're still based on the idea that a blemish on your face is an indication of a deeper issue. So can face mapping lead to clear skin? Now, research is limited, but I have found one publication which was really, really interesting, which I'll share with you towards the end, but you can see it in a moment on a slide. And that's one that I was sat in the garden and I just thought, I was doing this webinar, I was creating it and putting all the content together, and I was like, you know, people listening will understand this hopefully, but I just need some evidence behind this. I didn't feel comfortable talking about it with lots and lots of people, because ultimately there was a few that had registered for this, and I needed some evidence. So I did find that for you to consume and make your own mind up ultimately. So also known as main shang. Now I've got some notes on this because I can't remember all that. I'm not that good. It directly translates to face reading. Now, Chinese face mapping is a 3,000-year-old practice. It views the face as a map with each connecting to different organs, like you've just seen in that image. When there's a bodily imbalance, it's said that the skin will show this via pimples or via acne or via spots, redness or dryness. And the location of these blemishes on the face supposedly represents the organ that's infected or affected. There's no real scientific basis to Chinese face mapping. Instead, based on years of observation, and I believe that energy flows to and from organs along invisible pathways. So stay with me here, because I know this is when I started to think, oh, here we go. A study published in the Journal of Acupuncture and Meridians Studies states that this hidden system has a degree of influence over both the cardiovascular and the nervous system. So this is where I started to tune in and think, okay, nervous system's on there. Some experts don't believe in it at all, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, claiming that pimples mainly appear on the face due to high numbers of oil-producing glands. But there's more than just that. The webinars that we've just done, we've talked about stress, we've talked about food, we've talked about diet, we've talked about acne, we've talked about rosacea, and we know that there's more than just the reason why that's happening. So hopefully you're starting to kind of entwine all this together. Evidence-based advice in a dental aspect, the same should go with skin, but having knowledge on the disputable skin mapping theory may be advantageous to grow a relationship with a client who has read this somewhere. So there's my point. So not everybody is about this skin sciencey side of things. We, you know, ultimately then once we've got them in the door, we can then get them to think outside the box with it, but you will resonate with another sort of individual, another group of clients, another avatar of clients, and that could make the difference. That could be key. So we're going to start with the lung. So again, this is where I kind of roll my eyes slightly, but the lung in relation to emotions, it can be linked to grief, stress, and sad news. So think back maybe to a time personally, see if you can personally resonate with that. And where we see the lung, we can see in the cheek areas here. And being in the role that I'm in, and ultimately most of us now wearing masks, I do tend to have a breakout in this area a lot, and we can think of our own reasons as to why that's happening as well. But just think if that resonates with anything in your past. If you've been through, like at the minute, we're going through quite a lot of grief and a stressful time. Have you noticed an outbreak in that area? Ultimately, can you resonate with that as well? It's also linked to a low immune system. And again, that could be down to, if it's not so much an issue with the lung, but obviously it's anything around that area. So if something isn't quite functioning as it should. Also, if we see sweating in this area, this can mean a meridian imbalance here as well. When we think about the lungs, we need to obviously think about keeping hydrated. We need to think about good nutrient levels to keep, oxygenated blood going to all vital organs all around the body as well. We need to think about omega-3 fatty acids and plenty of hydration, just to see if that helps those areas. Now, this is an area that I could resonate with a little bit more because we talked about it in relation to the last webinar, the one before, around superfoods. So we talked about detoxification. We talked about the real role of the liver and how important it was at removing and flushing out and helping to remove any toxins. So ultimately, we can see the liver and the area that it addresses and how that's going to have an effect on the body. So I talked about here, I can resonate with this. If I've had, a heavy weekend, then I will always start with a breakout in this area as well. This area in the middle here, the frontalis, is also been referred to in the past. And I've had clients that have come to see me for liver lines. Now, these liver lines are from frowning too often, and obviously, the muscles in that area. has expanded and contracted and created a breakdown in the collagen in that area. So that is why that's happened. So I can resonate with that, with the anger and the moodiness and the irritability. But the breakdown in collagen isn't because of the liver, it's because of the movement in that area. So you're starting to kind of think outside the box with it as well. There's other links there, as you can see. We've got irregular periods, PMS, menstrual health, constipation, and problems around the eye area as well, and a buildup of toxins. So if we've had a poor diet and or too many toxins in our diet, then we may see it in this area as well. But I thought that was the most interesting fact, was the liver lines and the link to the anger and the moodiness and the irritability. So when a client first came in and they said, oh, I'd like some treatment for my liver lines, I was like, sorry, what, liver lines? Literally no clue. But now hopefully you guys, if you have those individuals, but that's my point, because you're still going to have people coming in for treatments like that, and you can now understand their trail of thought and maybe think about talking about these things with them. I can just think about a lady I had. She rang me on Friday and she's having some skin concerns. She's got a lesion on her face, actually, a spot on her face that was infected. And her husband, this is a true story, she rang me on Friday, and her husband got her some facial cleanser, or so she thought, and it turned out to be floor cleaner. Now, I have absolutely no idea how or why this happened, and I genuinely was kind of, right, okay, what do we need to do here? Referred her on to my prescriber, who ultimately saw, obviously, that there was an infection and a breakdown in the epidermis, because she basically put an acid onto the skin. And she was very, very anxious about this. She didn't want to go on antibiotics. She rang me up because she was worried about the effect that was going to have on her skin. So my point about this is you're having to understand the sort of conversation that you are going to have. And when we came out of it, she came across as an individual that was really, really into this side of things. So traditional Chinese medicine, and the fact that she felt that was there because, she's now used a product on the skin and it's had an effect. It wasn't until I sat and talked to her about the product that she's using and why that's affected her. And the truth came to light, that she didn't realize that there was a difference between products that you are cleaning the skin with and products that you can clean the sink with. Now, where I'm going with this, I don't know. I've just started talking about it, but that is a phone call I had on Friday. But what I took from it is that she was really, really anxious about putting anything in her body, even though she'd put that on her skin. So, having that ability to adapt to patients and to adapt to individuals is really, really important. Because I was sat there thinking, what is going on here? Obviously, I made sure she was okay, and it was a sincere incident, according to the husband. It was something that they got from Amazon or something, but there we are. So now that's maybe where you can push out to your clients to make sure that they're ordering the correct products from you as well. Talk to them about this. Maybe individuals can maybe resonate with this image, and that's what they like. And they have done when I've put it to them during a FaceTime consultation, so to speak, and we've shared the screen and we've talked about problem areas. They can resonate with that, and then you can use your evidence side of it, bring this in as well, and bring it all together ultimately too. Okay, so we're going to talk about liver support. So this was on one of my previous webinars too. So by helping the liver, we can cut down on aggravating foods such as alcohol, coffee, and really, really hydrate the skin with plenty of water intake. Hydrogenated fats as well, they're not great for the liver. So eating clean foods, vegetables, green veg, berries, citrus fruits, and fresh herbs is all going to help. Then we think about step 3 with the milk thistle and chlorella for liver function and as a natural anti-inflammatory. So when I think about a breakout in that area, I'm going to go back. So in the liver area, I think about inflammation. So that inflammatory response, and that's my own analogy on it, because again, I like the evidence side of it. So if the liver is upset because of what we talked about, whether it be stress, whether it be diet related, superfood related, or something systemically going on, then that's why that area is affected. So I can resonate with that. So again, that's something that I can talk to my patients about as well. Then we look at the heart. So the heart is above the top lip area, as you can see. The heart is associated with being joyful, happy, and happy emotion ultimately. So if we see redness in this area, is there something going on? We can maybe think about cutting back on red meats and increasing in omega oils if we see something going on with the skin. But ultimately, we're thinking about inflammation. And again, that's what I keep resonating to when I see this and I understand it a little bit more in my own way, which is what all you guys need to do, and hopefully take your own, have your own take on it from this image that we're seeing. When we talk about, I'm more comfortable with this one, as you can see, spleen and stomach. So we've got digestive issues again, irritable bowel syndrome. We're talking about constipation, and we're talking about being overworked, fatigued, and run down. Okay. So again, all of these, if we're thinking about the spleen and the stomach, and we see a breakout in the cheek area here, this to me screams out inflammation. Much like if you guys miss that webinar, then do request it, because it is relevant, and then you can hopefully tie this in together, or as you're thinking I've lost the plot. But when we have worry, we are stressed. When we are stressed, we create more of a hormone called an androgen, and that is going to have a negative effect and increase the amount of inflammation as well. When we have digestive issues such as IBS, there is inflammation. And when we have inflammation, that is basically where the body is going into an overreaction, and that is going to affect the skin as well. So I can see how this is linked in together. It's linked to constipation. So we've got a buildup of toxins in the skin because we're not, or in the body, because we're not excreting them in the usual way. So that's why your fibers and things are really important in your diet. If we think about overworking, fatigue, and being run down, then that's going to affect the amount of nutrients that are in the body, and also in effect going to how they affect the skin as well. We think about puffiness, this could indicate an allergy, so think about skin superfoods as well, and how you can maybe detox and look at that, which we chatted about a couple of weeks ago too. But a lot of these, as you can see in my head, they resonate to inflammation, and that's why I felt that inflammation needed its own webinar, because that in itself has an effect on everything else in the body too. So this is a previous slide from another webinar too. You can see how it integrates in 4 ways to gut health. So we need to think about friendly bacteria food, avoiding foods that attract bad bacteria, and taking a multi-strain probiotic supplement. If you're finding a breakout in these areas, just try it and see if it makes a difference too, because that is ultimately how you are then going to be able to resonate more with this TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, the Meridians, and all of these things that we're discussing this morning. Anti-inflammatory foods are important. So there's just an example of a few there for you. So you've got ginger, sweet potato, and coconut is all really, really good. So it's kind of cooking with these and adding them into your diet that's going to make a difference. Ginger, turmeric, and garlic as well. Garlic's a good one too. Flaxseed and avocado. And I told this story on my last webinar, but avocado, I sent my husband for some avocado, and it was after there was a thing in that, I think it was a Daily Mail or somewhere, about avocado being able to fight coronavirus. And ultimately, when we went shopping that weekend, you literally couldn't get avocado anywhere. Now, I wouldn't agree with the fact that it's going to fight coronavirus, but it is going to help with inflammatory markers and inflammation, and there is links and research behind that too. So including these sort of things in your diet, omega-3 oils is really helpful for anti-inflammatory action. So just to touch on inflammation, because this is where I feel a little bit more comfortable going on to the science side of things. And I know you guys, if you tuned in last week, it was quite a heavy science one. And then now this is the polar opposite, because we're talking about meridians and free-flowing energies and things like that. So let's bring it back just a little bit so you can hopefully understand why I'm talking about these areas as well. So inflammation is a defense reaction of the body against any sort of injury or something that's going on, be it an infection or whatever it is. It comes from the Latin word inflammatio, which means fire. And it's traditionally seen by redness, swelling, pain, heat, and impaired function. So something not functioning correctly, like we've just been talking about. You can also sometimes see redness and heat, and that is caused by an increase in blood flow to the area. We get a swelling, which is an accumulation of fluid, and then pain by the swelling. This is a release of compounds to the nerve signals because of the amount of inflammation that's there, the amount of swelling that's in place. inflammation happens to clear away harmful agents ultimately. So it's to flush out the body and to flush out whatever it is that's going on. So if, you know, I keep referring to myself here, but again, it's how I learn almost. If something happens to me, I think, oh, that's like that time that happened. Now, if I've had, you know, a night on the Prosecco and I'm feeling a bit rough the next day, then I always feel really, really inflamed in my lymph area here. And that is because ultimately there is inflammation there. It's my body fighting toxins. It's helping the liver out to flush everything out as well. So I can resonate with that too. And I don't know if any of you guys can. We're going to move on to the kidneys. So again, they're really, really important to help with toxin removal and helping with water retention. So we need to drink lots and lots of water and cut out the stimulants that can act as a water retentive factor as well. So when we talk about the kidney in relation to traditional Chinese medicine, it's associated with fear and feeling isolated. There has been links to fertility issues here as well, polycystic ovary syndrome, and kidney issues can cause puffiness to the skin. So puffiness is obviously water retention, it's a buildup of toxins, and ultimately it's the kidney not functioning properly. And where you can see, you know, on the areas on the face, how that's going to affect is you know, underneath the eye area. So what I would propose is anybody with under eye issues, and I do this when I do certain treatments such as Sunnicos underneath the eye, we talk about Nutricos, so we talk about nutrients, which are so important to flush out the body and ultimately help heal. So we're removing the toxins out of there, we're giving the kidneys a helping hand, we're giving the liver a helping hand, and that is going to have a benefit to under eye area as well. So drinking lots of water, cutting out your stimulants, and just seeing if that resonates with any of your patients too. So when you're taking the medical history, you go into everything in depth and you talk about issues. So is there any fertility issues? Is there any polycystic ovary history? Is there, you know, what is their mental health like? Are they going through certain, you know, times where, you know, they're quite stressed out, they're fearful of something? See if you can interlink this together, because it'd be really, really interesting to see how you guys get on. When we talk about the gallbladder, so again, this is where I roll my eyes a little bit because we're thinking about lack of courage and being indecisive. Okay, it can indicate liver issues, so that's where I then revert back to the inflammation and feel more comfortable and resonate with that. So it will indicate a diet that's too high in sugar and fatty acids, because the gallbladder is attempting to try and fight, you know, get rid of these sugars and get rid of these buildup of sugars in the skin as well, which is really, really important when we think about glycation and how that affects collagen as well. And ultimately, that's something that we need to definitely consider. When we think about the colon, again, we talked about this in the inflammation webinar, and we talked about stress. So any sort of condition to do with inflammation and stress combined is going to have an exacerbated effect as well. What we know about the colon is blackheads and spots may be due to a sluggish digestive system. How does that make sense? Well, it's because we've got a buildup of toxins in there. Ultimately, it's all down to you know, what is in the body and how it's not being flushed out. So if you have someone that is constipated, you've got a buildup of toxin and waste in that colon, and that is then going to spread around the body, and that is going to have an effect on the skin as well. Worrying and overthinking can also affect digestion. Now, I'm a big believer in this. I do suffer from IBS, and I have had some pretty horrendous stomach issues in the past. And worrying and overthinking these, it does make it worse. So I used to have, you can ask my parents about this, I used to have a serious, when I was younger, and not, you know, it's still not gone away fully, but I used to have an issue of needing to know where the toilet was when I went anywhere, because I used to worry and overthink this, and I used to find that because I was overthinking it, it would make me need the toilet, and that I can completely resonate with this as well. And that is ultimately, as I was doing this, how I find it so interesting, because again, where I used to have big breakouts when I was younger resonates to this, and that is all down to that overthinking And again, you know, let's think about stress. We talked about this and the effects of stress on the skin, how it induces hormone production, how we have cortisol, we start to release the androgens, and that's going to have an effect on the skin. So again, I can resonate with all of this from my own previous experience as well. So food sources for friendly bacteria, we talked about this last time, but fibers are so important to help cleanse the colon, to help you know, livers remove the toxins as well, and ultimately the body to function properly. We can take this from green olives, green bananas, asparagus, onions, and leeks. And then we've got inulin, which is the FOS and the GOS, which we can take in for your friendly bacteria food source as well. So this was all discussed on the last superfood webinar. So if you want to know a little bit more and you've not seen that and you've not got a clue what I'm talking about, then that will make sense if you hopefully watch them in order. So the forehead area, so again, we can talk about liver lines and how that's had an effect. So I much prefer the frontalis and the glabella complex, which is this area here. How is that linked to general digestive issues? How is it linked to bad diet and too much sugar, bad fats? Is it time for that liver detox? Okay, so we are looking at the small intestine, so that is imperative to help remove toxins from the body as well. If there is a food intolerance, this is where I've picked up on this with my own clients too. So I see lots and lots of little tiny pimples in this area when this is relevant, and this is where I start to get them to do a food diary. So they may not have had a food intolerance. We go through medical history, we talk, you know, and again, you know, I'm no expert in this. This is just me thinking outside the box and having a patient or an individual in front of me. So if you're seeing somebody with these very small pimples in this area, what is going on? Is there more to it? So we start to think about other things like this as well. Is there a food tolerance in place? And again, what other signs and symptoms have they got? The worst thing we can do is Google these things, because it kind of gives us some sort of terminal illness if we do. So avoid doing that, but just think outside the box. And if you have individuals, or if you yourself are suffering with problems in that area, then you may want to think about this ultimately as well, and see if that makes a difference. So where are we on this? We're going to move on to the chin and the jaw. This is connected to the hormonal system, and I can definitely resonate with this one personally, especially around the chin area. It's linked to ovulation, so it can potentially be linked from whichever side it is that we're ovulating is the side that we're going to have that breakout of spots and the build up there on the skin. It's also related to candida, which is an overgrowth of fungi within the body, within the skin, which is related to too much sugar as well. So you can see how I've brought this one in after the superfoods, after the diet, because it's just where it sits in line and where it feels right. So a little bit about candida, if you guys don't know, it's another sugar and it can trigger breakouts. We discovered this in the superfoods one a couple of weeks ago. It's a yeast that lives in the skin and within the digestive tract. So it thrives on sugar. When candida grows, it causes gut problems and can affect how the body can absorb nutrients. So you see how that is then going to have an effect on the skin, on other organs as well. So it's really, really important to discover whether candida is a culprit behind that as well. And there are tests that you can have or request to see if that is the issue. So as you can see, you probably picked up on it, there was slides in that last part that made me feel uncomfortable. There were slides that I was comfortable with, and that hopefully just makes it more natural, because again, I'm not here to say, well, I'm a big believer in this now and I completely understand and resonate with all of it, and I'm going to talk about this with all my patients and clients. But I think what's important is you take out of it what you will, but how can we use this, or how can our patients understand that sometimes there is more to it ultimately, and that's where your evidence will come in. So that's where I went searching. So great, the face map's brilliant. I love the visual. I love the fact that I can have that discussion with my clients and my patients, and or you guys can maybe resonate with it too. But where's the evidence behind this? And this is where I feel that I really needed to back this up. So let's take a little closer look. This is a bit wordy, so just bear with me. There's lots of notes here. But this is what we like, ultimately. So can it really be that we've got this network of paths that transport energy through our body? Is that really true? There's so much behind it. There's so many. I've ordered a few books actually because I want to do some more reading around it. But is this microscopic pipeline really responsible for our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being? Who else is rolling their eyes? Can we really connect imbalances in our body using herbs as well as stimulating points with needles that coincide with these pathways? So that's where your acupressure and your acupunctures will come in. Now, I've got colleagues that do acupressure and acupuncture, and they've done it in dentistry, and they've linked it all in together with nutrition. So they're already thinking outside the box. So it may be something that you want to think about doing as well. Ancient cultures believed in these pathways and did indeed fix imbalances by adjusting the amount of energy that flows through these energy pipelines within the body. So that's where your meridians and these, the links between the two will come in. So in Siamese culture, so Thai, they call them Sen lines, and the ancient yogis who established this medicine referred to the energy pathways as nadis. So you'll see lots of this. That's why I was like, what is going on here when I started to look into this? In a whole, it's traditional Chinese medicine. So traditional Chinese medicine practitioners also refer to them as meridians. So that's the one that you come across all too often. And it's likely that every ancient society that developed their unique healing philosophy had a term synonymous with a meridian. So whether that's a meridian, whether it's a pathway, whether it's an energy, a chi, whatever it is, it's all to do with these lines within the body and how they're connected. Please stay with me because it does get a little bit better, I promise. A basic traditional Chinese medicine definition of the meridians of the body is that they are a network of energy channels. You've probably seen an anatomical chart of meridian points is in an acupuncture's treatment room. I know where I go for the chiropractor. He's got this on the wall. So it's kind of what, it's accepting the fact that it's there, and there is growing research and evidence behind it ultimately as well. When you take a look at this chart, it appears these meridian lines are quite superficial, looking like they're just beneath the skin, but they actually go much deeper than that as well. They are thought to be connected to surfaces of the body with internal organs like we've just learnt about. And as long as that energy can flow through these channels in the right areas, then the disease or the outbreaks or whatever it is that's going on can be averted. Every organ and major region in the body needs energy in order to function. We know this. We talk about ATP. We understand how the digestive system works. We've got a little visitor here now. My cat's decided to come up. The 6 pairs of meridians, 12 in total, each affecting a corresponding organ, okay, which we've just kind of touched upon ultimately. When you look at that face map that I did, and then this one, it will make more sense as well. Okay, research. Okay, so how are they researched? So research from China, published in the Journal of Electron Spectroscopy and Related Phenomena, concluded acupuncture points have a higher density of microvessels. So this is where I'm like, okay, I'm switching on now. We're back into the science of it. In addition, they also contain a large amount of involuted microvascular structures. Okay, so you're thinking, what is going on in this area? These points reveal microvascular densities with 2 branches existing around thick blood vessels. And they contain fine structures with more larger blood vessels in the same area. And what we are basically discovering is there is more vascularization of vessels in these areas, in these points, in these meridians, in these lines, in these pressure points ultimately as well. And modern research, though, has provided significant proof that the acupuncture meridians are actually visceral as well, so in the mind. However, I did find some research behind it, and this is worth a read as well. So a systematic review on the electrical properties of acupuncture points and pressure points and meridians, which is, another word for all of the above. Now, where it kind of sits in line is with the nervous system. So ultimately, the nervous system, inflammation, and from the science side of things, how I get my head around this, have a read of this article and see what you think. I'm not here to say to you guys it's as clear as mud. It's as clear as water. To me, it's still as clear as mud. And there are people out there that know an awful lot more around this. And, you know, again, my reflexologist, Ali, who I work with, I'd be really, really interested in having a discussion with her. Now I know more from doing the research that I have. So hopefully you guys have taken something from that. So you can see I was well out of my comfort zone, because we're talking about something it's out there, but it's quite out there as well. And I know there were people that are probably tuned in that are really into these sort of things as well. So I apologize if I came across as quite negative towards it. That's not the way at all. I'm open to every eventuality. I'm open, you know, my clients come in, as I talked about that lady, you know, she'd put floor cleaner on her skin, but then she wouldn't take anything to remove the infection ultimately. But you know, we're seeing a variety of patients in variable situations, patients, clients, who, whatever it is, delegates, whoever it is, whatever role it is that we're in, and understanding the fact that we all think in different ways as well, I think is important. But again, I like to, you know, have a tailored approach to every single patient or client or anybody that I see. And there is more to the surface than just your topical creams that you're thinking about, than just popping some injectables in there, that, you know, just doing your toxin and your filler course and then that be it. There is an awful lot more to it. And, you know, body dysmorphia, we start to think about that. That's another an avenue that we can go down as well. All these things hopefully start to entwine. I've seen a massive, you know, I've definitely switched my thought onto foods more. So when I'm seeing clients, when I go back into practice, and again, my own SWOT analysis of what I've learned from doing these webinars for you guys is that I don't think about nutrition enough. And I certainly don't think about, you know, other systemic manifestations that may be going on as well. So this will maybe make me think outside the box with that as well. So we are, you know, bigger picture with the patient, window of opportunity. So you guys know I'm working with the skin cancer charity as well, so I've brought that in. You know, where I work, we've got Ali there, so she's into the alternative side of medicine too, and that will hopefully give us a broader spectrum of patients and clients that we're getting through the door as well. And I hope that has helped a little bit. So next week, I'm a lot more in my comfort zone. So please don't think, well, Annette, you were pants today. I hope you've enjoyed it. You know, I did feel I was a little bit anxious about doing it. You guys can probably pick up on that maybe from me doing the and losing my trail of thought and having to go from notes so much. But that is because I'm you know, I'm not that familiar with it, so it is different to me, but I'm aware that it's there, and I'm glad that I've put the research in for you guys today as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Next week, we're going to be looking at something that everyone has been asking me for, and that is skin types, skin tones, and conditions. So this is going to be quite a hefty webinar, and it may need to thread on to the week after ultimately, but we will see how we go for time. But I certainly think that that's a really, really important one. Now we've understood all the intrinsic side of things. So we've talked about superfoods, we've talked about stress, we've talked about the link between the two, and inflammation. We've talked about meridians, and we've talked about face mapping, which is something we'll come across all too much. And a client will come in, I get this because of X, Y, and Z. And now hopefully you can have a bit more of an understanding behind that and help them with their decisions around it. So thank you very much for listening. I can see there's a few questions, so I'll do my best to answer these as well. There are, yes, Kirsty, if you email me, then I can send you the previous webinars. That's not a problem. And then this one will make a lot more sense. I'm sorry if it's been a bit, what's she talking about today? Because I know I did keep referring back. Let's have a little look at the chat. Oh, that's good, fab webinar. So yeah, someone said working outside your comfort zone is how we learn and expand our knowledge. Was very informative. That's good. Looking for previous webinars, no problem, that's absolutely fine. If you want them, then just drop me an email. It's Annette@SkinSmilesSuccess. I'll pop it in here, and I can send that to you, not a problem. And then that will make a bit more sense, because I know I kind of did keep referring back to that one, back to the others, but that is because I kept coming across this traditional Chinese medicine, and I knew it needed to be touched upon, because again, I offer reflexology. Well, I don't personally, but you know, Ali does it in my clinic, and it's really important for me to understand more so I can talk to my clients about it as well. Now, Ali actually performs a facial around pressure points, and there is increase. You know, I was blown away with the amount of evidence that's growing behind anti-aging via acupressure, and it's a whole new ball game. So yeah, ultimately, have a little look into that, because that'd be really interesting. Okay, where are we now? So any more questions? Do you recommend any liver cleansing supplements? Most importantly, obviously, I would just signpost you to lemon water, and turmeric is amazing for cleansing the liver out as well. If you suffer with any form of constipation though, and again, this is, you need to seek medical advice if you are having any other issues before you start going down this route ultimately. But lemon water and turmeric is great in relation to really detoxing and flushing out the toxins as well. And Ali's just commented on here, for anyone wants more information on facial mapping, I'm happy for people to contact me direct. So Ali, that's brilliant, thank you. What I will do is I'll pop Ali's email in the post webinar feedback that you get, that will probably come through tomorrow, and you can then maybe get in touch with Ali. So Ali is my reflexologist over at W Skin, and she's ultimately very, very knowledgeable in this subject. And she's probably cringed a couple of times at me while I've been doing this, because she knows I'm out of my comfort zone, but I knew I needed to do it. So I know more about it now, and hopefully you guys too. But join me next week, because we are going to be talking more in my comfort zone. And we're going to be talking about skin types, tones and conditions, which is one that I know you guys have been dying for, and from the feedback that I've seen. So ultimately we'll get on to that. What concentration probiotic supplement would you recommend? So that is in the superfoods webinar, Anna, which if you haven't seen, I would recommend it. And someone's asked if the jade roller will help in acupressure. Yes, it will. If you have a little look on YouTube, I'm not going to do my own videos because they're already there. Why reinvent the wheel? But on YouTube, there are lots and lots of ways that you can use the jade roller in different ways. So yeah, we talked about the jade roller when we talked about stress. So you can see where all this is starting to integrate in together. And I found it was connected together, whether I've just gone off on a complete whim. But hopefully you've taken something out of this today. Thank you very much, guys. I will leave you with another song, because that's how I roll. Let's have a little look at what we can put on. And ultimately, I want you all to go away and have an amazing week. I want you to be positive. I want you to look after your skin. And if anybody has any skin concerns or issues and they would like to get in touch with me, then please do. I'd more than happily help via FaceTime, as I have done with a few clients this week, and get some certain skin kits and things for you guys that are appropriate. But think outside the box when it comes to your skin. Think about your diet. Think about the effect that could be having on your skin as well, and see if it makes a difference ultimately. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all your support. You know, Monday mornings, it motivates me to get up. It motivates me to do this webinar for you guys over the week. It does take me nearly a full week to get all this stuff together for you. So get your violins out. But get yourself the little black book as well, because that will help for your business planning and things like that, and your Corona SWOT analysis that I talked about at the beginning. So thank you so much, guys. You have an amazing week, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. And tell friends and colleagues and peers if you want to, if you think that that's interesting for them. Remember that it is limited to 100 places, so log in nice and early. I usually start it from about 9:15 with a bit of a playlist, which I might switch up for next week. Okay, any questions that I've not answered, I'll look through and drop me an email by all means, and I will happily get in touch too. All right, guys, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
I understood loneliness for what it was. Saw the pills on the table for your unrequited love. I would be nothing without you holding me up. I'm strong enough for all of us, all of us, all of us, all of us. I am a giant. Stand up on my shoulders. Tell me what you see. 'Cause I am a giant. We'll be breaking borders underneath our feet. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am a giant. Oh, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am a giant. Oh. Don't hide your emotions. You can throw down your guard and be from the notion. We can be who we are. You taught me something, yeah. Freedom is out. You taught me living it. Evidence, evidence, evidence. I am the giant. Stand up on my shoulders. Tell me what you see. 'Cause I am the giant. We'll be breaking borders underneath our feet. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am the giant. Oh, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am the giant. Oh. Gonna shake, roll away in the dirt under me, yeah. Gonna shake, roll away in the dirt under me, yeah. Gonna shake, roll away in the dirt, yeah. Gonna shake, roll away in the